Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And today we have Mike that had helped to raise companies and startups to raise over 200 million. Mike, can you please introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. So everyone, my name is Mike Lane Evans. I trained as an actor. I worked as an actor from the age of 8. And after sort of 20 or so years of doing this, I found myself in a situation in 2016 where every room I was going into, every casting, every interview, I was failing. I was not achieving what I had practiced, what I was setting out to do. And the way I described this at the time was it felt like I was giving 60% of myself. There was this ceiling, there was this barrier that was not allowing me to give 100% of myself. And so at the time I was working with the British military. I was helping do some training, some communication coaching, and I built some strategies and some models for communication that underpin a lot of the work that I do now with my business, Forefront Coaching. And in my research, I discovered that in the UK, where I'm based, 83% of people have reported the same feeling that I did. 83% of people report this ceiling, this lack of ability to connect with people, to communicate, and to actually achieve the things that they set out to achieve. So what we do at Forefront Coaching is help people to increase their impact through their communication. And we do this through a number of different courses, which we can talk about maybe later on today, but it's really about helping people to better connect so that they can achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that every single problem and business is all about problems and solving problems. Every single problem out there can be solved in communication, right? If you have effective communication, any problem can be solved, right? Sometimes we hold back, and few things that we discover out of this communication is the fear of public speaking, the fear of communicate, the fear of what people are gonna say if I raise this, and have a huge impact. Some people stay in the same job for 20, 25 years. They did never ask a raise because they have this lack of confidence, or they need funding, and they have this fear. We have reached over 1 million people, helping them how to become the fear of public speaking. So we are really aware of this problem. So what is your point, Mike, or your view in how you can help them also to break this fear?
Honestly, one of the best pieces of advice I can give is get your 10,000 hours in. So if anyone...
Oh, I love it. I like this.
Yeah, like any one of your listeners or watchers who isn't familiar with what I'm talking about, there is a theory that if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you can become an expert. So even you, Harry, can become a ballet dancer if you start now and you spend 10,000 hours. That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, there are some limitations to it, but one of the biggest issues that I see with communication is that people don't put the practice in. They spend lots of time building their product, building their MVP. They maybe even spend lots of time talking to customers, but they're not really focusing on what they say or how they say it to their customers. They don't put any practice into this stuff. And maybe they get great calls with customers and they never buy. They don't take up the product or the service. Maybe they have great calls with investors, but that investor just ghosted them. Maybe they have really bad calls, but they don't know why these things are happening. And like you just said, Harry, very wisely, all of this can be solved with improving your communication. So if you put that 10,000 hours in, and of course, that's where we believe as coaches that we're allowing people to put some of that practice in. So sometimes there's lots of insights from us, and sometimes people just need to put that concerted practice in and get those 10,000 hours.
100%, yeah, because I think people are gonna listen this podcast, they're gonna watch, and oh my God, Harry's amazing, Mike is amazing, they can do it, I cannot do it. And what they don't know is that we have done already 10,000 hours on this. I always say that public speaking and the communication is a skill, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a talent. I have a cousin that know how to paint, and he said he's painting really expensive. You have a singer that can have certain talent, right? But communication is not talent. It's not a talent. It's a skill base. Basically, like driving or swimming. The more you practice, the better you become. When you start driving, you cannot drive after you practice a lot. Some people already drive and take the phone. It's not that you can do it. You're allowed to do it, but it's because you practice and done so much. So how difficult or how you can communicate this to your clients, to the people that you help with, Mike, that they can actually understand that they all can do this. This is not something that, oh, Harry, Mike can do it, I cannot do it, I'm not good enough, I'm not this. This is something that everyone can do it. How can you open this conversation with your clients?
So I actually think like we tell stories all day, every day. Whether we're good at storytelling or bad at storytelling, like we all use stories. There's a whole theory around this is what sets us apart from animals. And so we do it whether we're realizing we're doing it or not. So I'm sure some of your listeners are really cringing at this and they're saying, I'm not a storyteller. I hate this idea. Why do you use the term storytelling? But there's so many steps along that way. So simply just talking with your friends, talking with your family, people that there's a safe environment with, and testing things out. Like, what was the success of the way you tried to communicate something? So one of the things I talk to a lot of my clients about, imagine that you're with a friend and you both have kids and you're trying to say, listen, let's get babysitters for the kids. Let's go out for dinner tonight. Let's go and get drunk maybe. Let's go and like have a fun night. Like, let's not be responsible for a night. You're going to speak to that friend in a particular way, in a tone of voice and energy. There is an intention behind that because you want them to go to the restaurant. Now, the next day, that friend has stayed over at your house and you need them to leave you alone because you have so much work to do. You can't talk to them. You're going to speak to them in a very, very different way. And we know this instinctively as humans. We understand because there's an intention to go to the restaurant. There's an intention to leave me alone. And a lot of times what happens is that when people come to presenting their business, talking about their brand, being at a networking event, they forget their intention. Their intention is just sell, 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 become a millionaire, become a millionaire. And it's not. I need to connect with this human being and understand, does this human being need my product or need my service? And so before you get to all the scary people that you don't know, go test it out with all the safe people that you do know. So if any of your listeners are watching and they feel they're so far away from this, that is where I would say start speaking with your friends, speaking with your family, and notice what do you do to influence them and what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, because I think we learn from stories, right? Even when we are babies, our parents tell us stories to go to sleep. So the best way of communication and to engage an audience is with the story, right?
Yeah,
And there are now let's talk about business because we find a lot of issues with entrepreneurs, not with entrepreneurs, but with everyone out there. When people are preparing the pitch deck and they need to present in front of the investors to raise funds, right? Now they have also this barrier, and this barrier is embedded within their unconscious mind because let's face it, when we are kids, our parents is telling us, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers, and but then we need to go out there as an entrepreneur and share our pitch deck and talk to strangers, and you find this fear, this barrier that entrepreneurs and startup founders are facing. That no, I don't want to present. No, I don't want to do this. Can you do it for me? And they finding the excuse to do practice is because this fear is there. So how difficult is to navigate this issue and and get the entrepreneur on board and say, hey, exactly like you had to, like you shared with us, you do need to make the 10,000 hours. You're gonna be fine. This is all you need is practice and the right mentors.
So just to check, I understand what you mean. How do I convince my clients that they do need to put in the
To
practice?
practice, yes.
Gosh, a really good question. We work with
Because it's difficult to get them on board, yeah, because they have the fear.
yeah, everyone, like people are going to have that fear. I mean, we work with clients who come to us themselves. We work with clients who have been strongly recommended by friends or by colleagues to come and see us. And we also work with people within organizations where it's already been paid for. So they just get sort of told, hey, listen, here's a resource for you. And so I would say it's slightly different and working backwards because they're the easier things. With where the organization has already brought us in and we're working with those individual clients, the quality of the work is the thing that convinces them. Because like the way that I am communicating, the way that I'm being, even just now on the podcast, is just me. I'm just being genuine. And one of the things that we talk about so much in our early training is something called the trust equation. So have you talked about that on this podcast before, Harry?
No.
Okay, so it's a study from a guy called David Mayer or David Meyer, depends how you pronounce the surname. The trust equation, for those mathematically minded people who are listening to this, you can literally go do the equation and you can figure out your trust score. For me, though, it's really about just there are 4 key parts that are needed, and we know this scientifically from study, to gain people's trust. So we need credibility, we need reliability. Now, those things, we understand them. A lot of founders, a lot of people who are setting up businesses, they understand, of course. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's easy to get people to see you as credible or to see you as reliable. We understand, okay, I need to do the things I said, I need to prove it out, and I need to show up and prove it all. Credibility, reliability. The other 2 metrics are things that I see, I would say 90% of my clients not considering when we first meet them. Intimacy or vulnerability is a key component for trust. And the other thing is self-orientation. So putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So just to summarize all of this, we want to have high credibility, high reliability, and high levels of intimacy or vulnerability. And we need to have low levels of self-orientation, because if all I'm doing is thinking about myself, I'm not thinking, hey, listen, this customer just doesn't even need this product. I'm wasting my time and their time. So those 4 things are really, really important. And when we look at working with my clients, those who've already been paid for, it's easy because we build that vulnerability and that intimacy so soon that there's a safe environment for them to just try things out, to fail, to take risks, to challenge themselves. And everybody will get some level of success. It might be 1%, it might be 100% level of success. That success feels good at the end of the day. We've evolved, we've improved, and we've stepped forward. So those who haven't worked with us yet, who we're meeting for the first time, we're able to talk about the revenue that we brought in for companies. We're able to show case studies. If we go back to storytelling as an idea, storytelling is human. And so what we do is we talk about clients that have existed, problems that they've had, and how we were able to help those problems. Bringing out those use cases is one of the strongest human ways to show people the value that you can provide.
Yeah, I remember the no, sorry. I remember the first time that we did our workshop speakers and leaders here in UK, that when the people find out that they had to speak on the stage 4 times, they want to run away. And I'm like, what? They say, Harry, keep the money. Don't worry. I said, how come you leaving? You have to stay. We're going to work this out. How come you? So now let's talk about communication and your
Yeah.
career as an actor. How can help that? Because communication, especially when you're speaking on the stage, it goes even deeper that that one-to-one, right? And I always say that the public speaking is the highest skill that a human being can have, right? That's because you can actually influence the audience. Let's face it, every time that you're speaking in public, you are selling. You're selling either a product or an idea, but you're selling. And the whole point is to how to persuade that audience, the 100% of the audience, right? And then we have the issue, for example, we in one of our workshops, we even teach people how to use the stage, which is coming from acting, right? From the theater
Yeah.
uh, to the movements on the stage to create more powerful message or not. And it's our job, and I think that what you do now is very well connected with your previous, because when we are on the stage, when we are doing our coaching programs, we have to perform. Why we have to perform and we have to put an act? We have to become actors when we are on the stage is because people learn in different ways. Some people learn auditory, some people learn visual, some people learn in the kinesthetic way. And the traditional education system that we go out there is mainly focused in listening, basically in auditory. Basically, the teacher speak and the student listen. That's why we have 33% of the people always that have the highest mark. Yeah, I'm visual, so I was not good at the school. So how uh, your experience in the acting as an actor
Yeah.
has benefits you and has helped you for you to communicate effectively or to train your people to communicate effectively, not only to 30% of the audience which are the auditories, but 100% of them.
So there's a study I think many people be familiar with that looked into like effective communication from Dr. Morabian from the 1960s. And we know from that study, and it still holds up now, that like 55% of effective communication is nonverbal communication. Now, those who haven't been an actor, the study really holds value. It really gives them something to anchor to say, okay, more than 50% of effective communication is things I'm not saying.
Yeah, 100% agree.
As an actor, though, you learn that sort of by osmosis. So as you're training, you use the whole stage. You are particularly on stage, if you're in the theater, the difference is that my reaction, instead of just the small smile, I've got to make that smile much bigger because I've got to make sure that somebody who is on the 30th row or the 1,000th person in the audience can still see that genuine emotion.
Yeah.
The difficulty in transferring this to non-actors, and something that I do want to just say, because this comes up with my clients all the time, is when you're trying to sell your business, there is no need for you to put on a performance or to act. Because if you don't know the intricacies of it, then you're not able to do it in a genuine way. A lot of the time, this is something I really see. And so people are trying to do a copy of that amazing TED talk they saw or that amazing YouTube video that they saw. And they're just trying to mimic the body language. People might do it watching me and try to mimic the ways that I'm speaking. Those things are true to me. They're very genuine to me. And they won't necessarily work for every single person. To answer your question around acting and being on stage, it's understanding that you're not just talking to somebody who's right in front of you, but that you've got to reach that 20th row or that 30th row. And so the body language, the tone of voice, the energy all needs to go up a little bit, but still needs to stay genuine to you. Otherwise, we won't believe you.
Tell me about it, yeah. The first time that I spoke in front of 2,000 people, I was so excited. I said, "Oh, I invited my friends, so my friends were in the audience, and I was so excited, like, oh, I'm gonna speak and I'm gonna say hello to my friends that's sitting there. And as soon as I jump in, I have lights everywhere. I couldn't see anything, anybody, because when these gigs are so big, you have lights everywhere on the stage. And I remember that it was like a red dot in the back, which was the camera, which is amplifying these big TVs that
Yeah.
people actually can see, because when it's a big gig, they have big TVs with cameras. And yes, I had to speak to that camera. I had to speak with that red point to actually make sure that everybody engaged. And 100% I agree with you. You have to amplify your expressions, because it's a large audience. And also, I agree 100% with you. People have to develop their own speaking personality.
Yeah.
Not try to copy Tony Robbins or Harry or Mike, or they have to speak. They had to create their own personality as a speaker. However, some lessons for the theater, yeah, could be really, really important. I remember that, you see, to get a powerful message, you had to go from the back to the front, right?
Yeah.
And if you're saying a powerful message, but you go from front to back, it's like you're saying something and you're diminishing, because, like you said, 80%, a large part of the whole equation is what you say, is in how you say it. And remember, for the theater, there are two Russian directors. I forgot the name. I think one is Kandiskin and the other one. So the one developed the theory that he write the script, and after they do the movements on the stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, there is another Russian theater director that does it the opposite way. He first do the movement, and after give them the what they to the actor what they have to say.
Yeah.
So this is for illustrate to everyone listening here how important is what Mike was sharing with us: the body language, the vocal variety, the way that you move on the stage, the way that you develop this authentic yourself, speaking and presenting personality, which everyone have a different way of doing, because like Mike shared with us, it's come with our DNA, it's come with our. However, I think that there is a lot of lessons from acting, not lessons, we can say principles, right?
Yeah.
Concepts that if every CEO, every manager out there, every employee are aware of this concept, that most of them come from theater, right? And because let's face it, when you are in the theater, you want to engage the whole audience. You want everybody to understand the performance. You want everybody to understand what's going on, right? So that is done with that intention. That's why the actors move on the stage, use the stage in certain way, express the things, make the amazing story. So the whole point is that everybody get it, everybody understand what's going on, and this is what we need to achieve in effective communication. We have to make sure that everybody get it right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the mistakes I see a lot of the time, that people take this idea, or many ideas that they have in their mind. You know, maybe you've spent 2 years in your office at your computer, and maybe you've built this amazing product or service, but then you're talking to people from where you have gotten to. So I say you're starting in the middle of the story, because you're walking on stage, or you're walking to that room and you're saying, so where we are now, what we've done now, and what we can offer, and how we got there is this. Going back in time, and you're not a skilled movie writer or director where you can jump around these time zones. And that lack of structure makes it very confusing for us to follow. And so instead of starting in the middle of the story, it's much better to start earlier in the story, maybe the beginning of the story. It depends where your story begins. But take us through the problems that your clients have experienced. Take us through the problems that you have experienced on the way, because we will emotionally invest in you and in the existing problems much more before we start to hear about what's your product, what's your service, and how does it work. So the structure, like, I totally agree with you, Harry. You know, use it, go and watch plays, watch movies, watch Netflix shows, and find out what are those simple structures that really work for you, that work for you as an audience member, and then figure that out. How do we bring those things? And then being on stage, you've got to move. you need to move because your nerves are going to be rushing through your body. So they're screaming out saying, please, can we move? But what sometimes happens, and we saw Steve Jobs do this, he's a good example, is people just pace back and forward. They hit one side of the stage and they turn to the other. And maybe whilst they're pacing, they're looking down at their feet. You're not engaging with your audience. And so there's lots to learn from going to theatre and watching actors. The only thing I would say that's slightly different is for actors, they're usually, in most type of theatre, they're showing you what we call a slice of life. So it's like you're watching through the TV screen. You're watching onto the stage or through the screen, and you're watching something happen in real life. Whereas when you're up there presenting, you're not just talking to a blank wall and people watching that slice of life. You're talking through and you're connecting with those people. And so you need to be really conscious of that. And so when you move, don't just move across the stage, move for a reason, because maybe I'm talking to somebody over here.
Exactly.
Now maybe I
With
turn and I
purpose.
talk to somebody over here, and so I walk over in that direction. So there's a reason for it. It becomes much more energized and connected, you know?
Yeah. And it's a lot to learn about that. So sometimes people, sometimes you discover the path of your life just by connecting the dots. Because who's gonna know that your past career as an actor would help you a lot to what you do right now. I think it's a huge advantage. We have. I personally have received a lot of training in that area, especially in the use of the stage.
Yeah.
Because again, what we will talk today, when the audiences are large and the stage are big, and you have to be in the same pace, right? What you saying, and it have to be aligned with how you move on the stage, and this the expression, the communication, the is more when people are presenting, same that you say, to raising funds. Everyone is always focusing in the presentation, in the PowerPoint, and they don't put enough attention to how they're gonna say the thing, how they're gonna convey the idea, and without being aware that this is the 80% of the of the job. Because at the end of the day, the investor is gonna have the slides, is gonna see the presentation, is gonna read exactly everything that that you put there. So in your opinion, Mike, the question everyone is waiting, yeah. So what are the 5 steps that you help your clients with, that blueprint that you have helped them, and in total you have helped them to raise over 200 million. So what is your blueprint? What are the 5 steps?
So the first one, right at the beginning, is figure out your market. And the more communication wording for that is figure out the pain points. I've met a lot of businesses that have an idea that solves a personal issue. It doesn't necessarily solve an issue for many other people. Or they've just seen a gap in the market, but they haven't figured out what the pain points are. Because at the end of the day, even if your product is solving an issue, you've still got a price point to it. And so what is the thing that drives those people, or will drive those people, to put their hand in their pocket and give you their money? And so I would say at the very, very beginning, when you're even starting out as a business, figuring out those pain points of the customers or the potential customers is the most important starting point before you start building the product. And so then from that, test that, run pilot schemes, go and run focus groups, speak to people. Don't just look on Google and get a few answers, but put some money into, or if you're lucky enough, kind of, find kind of volunteering groups to bring in loads of data and prove you've got something that there are a load of pain points for, that people will pay for, and they're agreeing with it. There's not just a couple of people, but there's a lot of people. Now you're building out that market. So that's kind of 1 and 2. The third thing is really understanding the further needs. So as you start to build the product, then not just those original testing phases, but finding out what else do they need. So like, if, for instance, like with you running this podcast, Harry, like you said, people are waiting for these 5 tips. At the same time, you evolve some of those other questions along the way because people have written in and said, wow, love that question that you asked somebody about. And you think, oh, that's a great question. I can use it again. And we build on that stuff. And I meet so many companies that get so focused on what they're building, what they're growing, that they forget to speak outwardly. And so off that understanding, then you can really build. It's not just about building that MVP, that minimum viable product, but it's about really being able to build something that has a place in the world and that people want. So for me, step 4 is the build. So then once you've built it, once you've got that product, the step 5 for me is connect. And so it's what you said briefly before, Harry, about the how, like how we say things. It also links to what I was saying about trust. Don't just try and sell this to people that don't need it, to just anybody, because you've spent all the money you've got on all the testing I've just advised you to do, and now you just desperately need some customers. If you've done all that testing, you know who your market is, you know where you should be going and speaking with. And so you can connect with those people on those pain points. You can tell those case studies, you can really connect with them emotionally, and then just as a human, so that they trust you, they like your product, they want to be a part of this product or service. So in summary, it's kind of pain points, figure out the market, test it, understand it, build it, connect with people.
Wow, that was beautiful. And then, Mike, what the last message that you have for entrepreneurs out there, for how they can, if founders out there, they are stuck with the pitch deck, they have a barrier, they cannot raise the funds, they don't think that the pitch deck is strong enough, or they have this lack of confidence in present that to investors, and every time that they present to investors, there is not effective, and they are about to give up. What advice do you have for them, and how they can find you guys and work with you, or how can you help them?
So if you're struggling to connect with investors or with prospect clients, just ask yourself 2 questions, really. The first is, how do you feel about this person? So I was going to say, do you like this person? I think that's too small. Feel about this person, because the reality is, you
Yeah,
maybe don't want to work with this
of
person
course.
because
Yeah.
you need that $1 million. So that's the first. And the second, and this is on a post-it note right there on my wall, and it's been there for 18 months.
Well,
Are you telling the truth?
100%. Yeah.
Are you telling the truth? Because if you find that you are blagging it, or any non-UK audience who don't know what I mean by that, you are kind of making things up a little bit, you're kind of inflating ideas, or you're trying to pretend that you really like rugby because they said they like rugby. If you're being false, then you're not telling the truth. And a lot of people will have a gut instinct. And so a lot of investors will work off that gut instinct. And maybe they're like, I don't know, Harry he's a nice guy and good business, but there's something in my gut.
There is something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because you didn't really connect. You didn't build that trust, and you weren't telling the truth. So those are the 2 things. And in terms of connecting with us, you can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Mike Lane Evans. Our business is Forefront Coaching. We're based in the UK and we work fully globally. We work across all continents, not Antarctica yet, but otherwise worked across every other continent. And our website is forefront-coaching.com. You will be able to see on there that outside of pitching, there are lots of other ways that we help businesses and individuals to communicate better. So if you're thinking, I don't have a business, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I struggle in my workplace, or I struggle to get my friends to believe me, we work with so
I am
many.
struggling to get a date, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. I've helped, before I set up this business, I've helped so many people to be able to speak more confidently on dates,
Oh,
just
wow.
with friends over the years. It's definitely something that comes up, because it really is like, if you have any level of communication, internal or external, with your company or with yourself, we've got a program or a course or a coaching session that will aid you and provide you with some value by the end of it, for sure.
And with that note, we're gonna finalize the podcast, and this is the final idea that everybody should be looking out there. Every single problem in life gets solved with effective communication. So, publicly speaking and effective communication, in my opinion, is the most powerful skill that a human being can have. And like Mike shared with us today, the more you practice, the better you become. Get these 10,000 hours out there, and you're gonna be an excellent communicator. Thank you so much, Mike, for your time. Yeah, fellow UK. A lot of people are joining the podcast from US. We have few people from UK. We need more people from UK.
Yes.
So, and for everyone listening or follow us in the social media, see you in our next episode where brave entrepreneurs break the wall and achieve the first million in sales. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.